Everyone, welcome back. So this is our last part on lecture 7, our second last lecture, and today we're talking about vendor managed inventory and postponement. So last lecture we actually talked about vendor managed inventory, but I want to go a bit more detail and kind of do a recap to clear your doubts to make sure you actually understand this operational strategy pretty well, and you're able to understand the advantages and disadvantages as well as some loopholes and some problems inside this strategy. So I mentioned before the meaning of vendor managed inventory is basically that the customer is actually outsource the task of managing inventory to the supplier. So now the supplier will not only supply the inventories for the customer, but they will also take on the task of managing the inventories at the customer's premises. So now they have two tasks to do. And our goal, our advantages and disadvantages, first of all, for the vendor is that the vendor will have direct access to the demand information. Because throughout these two lectures, I've mentioned a lot about excessive inventory, and when we hold too much excessive inventory and when they are not capable to be sold, we will actually waste all the money, we will waste cash, because inventories are illiquidified, they're unable to convert back to cash. If your inventory cannot be sold anymore, maybe it get perished, maybe the version is not new, maybe it's not welcome by the customer due to the change in popularity, due to a change in preferences, due to a change in the taste. So when the vendor has access to the demand information, it is good for the vendor at a point and in the point that the vendor will be able to supply the right amount of inventory so they can make sure they're earning money from every inventory they made. If they did not access information, if they are not applying VMI, if they are not building a relationship between the customer and the vendor, the possibility is that the vendor may have excess inventory because when there's uncertainties and they produce too much, they have no one to sell to. But when they're able to access to the demand information and when they actually coordinating and managing the customers' inventory, they're actually able to sell the inventory because they will be able to sign certain contracts to make sure the vendor will sell the inventories and the customers must buy the inventory wanted and demanded by the customer themselves. So in this case, for the vendor, our advantage is that they have direct access to information, and first of all, it can help them to increase their sales. Because once they know how much do they have to produce, it is actually a pretty good way to reduce their cost, as they can most likely sell all their inventories produced for this particular customer. And the second advantage is it is possible to increase quality and productivity. Because once they have access to demand information, they can actually calculate how much they need. They're actually able to produce it in a given amount of time. They're able to coordinate the supply chain. For example, their goal is to produce 1,000 by this week. They know this goal pretty clear, so they can maintain a pretty smooth division of labor, pretty smooth management productivity chain. Well, on the other hand, if there's no VMI, when there are uncertainties in the market, they might be a bit like a wishy-washy. Like today I want to produce more, tomorrow I'm not sure, maybe I'll produce less. And the day after, oh, let's start again, so it won't increase the quality because they are kind of hesitating every day, hesitating on how much they have to produce. This is a common problem. But however, this isn't a problem happening on many vendors because some vendors actually don't like VMI. I've mentioned this, I've emphasized this concept in my past video that vendors don't really like VMI. I would say many vendors do not like VMI. Although it sounds pretty good when I was talking about what's the advantage for the VMI for the vendor, but however, many vendors believe that they actually put in much more efforts and cost into this task rather than not coordinating with the customers through VMI. Because once they coordinate, although they might be able to access to demand information and the demand information could be pretty accurate, they may be able to sell their products in the confirmed kind of a manner. They are kind of 100% capable of selling their products to convert them to cash. But however, they also have to manage inventory. So they also have to go to the premise, the warehouse or the location configuration of the customer. They have to go to this configuration, go to this location, and actually help the customer to manage their inventory. So they are taking on extra tasks. Although it may mean, although the customer are going to give them money, but certainly the vendor believes that the customer may have more bargaining power and the vendors are more like laborers. So maybe there will be high opportunity cost when they are not able to sell the products. There may be pretty high opportunity cost because otherwise the vendor have much more time, much more money itself to complete tasks by itself, maybe to sell more inventories to a various range of customers. Moreover, when they coordinate with a specific customer, there can be this problem. When they coordinate, there can be this problem which exists that the vendor will not be able to choose certain customer anymore because they will sign certain contracts. So they will only help this customer, only manage the inventory of this customer So they actually are having high opportunity cost because there may be alternative choices that allow them to earn higher money. So with advantages comes a lot of disadvantages. So with probably a demand information or probably a more stable sales comes opportunity cost, and comes a lot of time and effort as well. And on the other hand, for the customer, inventory cost is one advantage theoretically, but inventory cost, this is a custom inventory that we have to, as customer, have to pay. If the customer outsource this management task to the vendor, then they have to pay this amount of money for the vendor amount of money or equal amount of money on inventory storage, inventory management. So the only advantage for the customer will be the sales, because when they apply VMI, it is a good way for them to increase the sales, since you can see from the vendor when they have demand access, when they access to demand information, they can increase production, maybe maximize the efficiency, they're able to increase the quality, and in the end, as a result, they may be able to increase the sales. When their product quality increase, when they are able to kind of get the right amount of inventories, when they so from this they can gradually maintain or increase or even enhance their customer loyalty, customer reputation, and so it is a pretty good way for the customer and vendor in terms of the quality, in terms of the sales. How about disadvantages? I mentioned before, inventory cost for a vendor is a pretty high disadvantage, and you can also say there are high opportunity cost. Same here applies to the customer. The customer has less flexibility. Less flexibility actually comes with higher opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is what you lose from an alternative option. So in this case, when they kind of stick to one vendor, they are not able to outsource this inventory management task to another vendor. So they are actually losing the flexibility. So these are the also moreover, in coordination we have this problem called information leakage, because we have to kind of pass on certain information, but we also don't want certain confidentials to be leaked to other parties in our supply chain. So this is about a kind of a recap on the advantages and disadvantages and what is VMI. I hope you guys are more clear about this concept right now, because we've spent about last lecture. I was also talking about VMI. I think it was quite short, but it was okay, understandable. It was about 8 to 10 minutes, and now I spent about 5 to 10 minutes again to go through VMI with you guys. And today we're moving on to next concept, next strategy, which are our last strategy I'm going through in our lecture 7, which is operational strategies in supply chain management. And in this part, we're going to talk about postponement. So if you recall from our last lecture, we discussed about mass customization. So remember our diagram on blue ocean and red ocean. We have a graph looking like this. So we have kind of a graph, linear graph. And I mentioned before, the x-axis is actually the quantity, how many products produced, and the y-axis is actually the customization. So we have a lot of products at this point right here, this circle, because we have, for example, Coca-Cola, for example, Uniqlo, Adidas, Nike, they're producing a lot of identical products, and they actually decrease, although it may be customized to your characteristics, but it is not pretty customized, since it is not designed for a specific person, it is open to the whole market. So I would say Nike, Adidas at some point here. There's certain customization because they're coming out with different models. And we also have some certain brand like tailor-made shoes, like for example, also including Gucci. Gucci kind of have both this point. Some of its products are identical, some are customized. So at this point, we have a low quantity and high customization. Both of these points are pretty okay if you can increase the sales. But now we want to reach this point right here. This point right here has both high quantity and both high customization, which shows a proportional relationship. And if we want to reach this point is actually called a mass customization. This means we're customizing, we're able to charge premium prices. We're able to charge premium prices while we're actually while we're actually having less risk on our inventory. Because when we customize, we can make sure the customer will buy, or if they paid like half, like 50% of the money of the product even before you're making the product. So in mass customization, the advantage is you are going to earn a lot of money, while you can also also make sure you don't waste your inventory. But it's pretty difficult. And it is a counterintuitive concept, as I mentioned in the last lecture. Mass customization is a bit counterintuitive, because sometimes there's a trade-off relationship. When there's higher quantity, you increase efficiency, you always decrease the flexibility and the customization ability. So there's one strategy that is theoretically possible to achieve mass customization, is called postponement. So postponement is a process of delaying the product differentiation point, and we're trying to maintain commonality as long as possible. So differentiation point is a point that we launch a product in the market, and postponement, if you can see from this word called postpone, you actually pushing, delaying the differentiation point. So you have enough information. Theoretically, the goal is to gather enough market information before you launch your product, But this requires a lot of channel capability, which is supply chain capability. How are you going to, as I mentioned in lecture 1, the value chain, how are you going to well plan your schedule, plan your production with value chain, along with new product development cycle and product life cycle, which is the supply chain. You try to coordinate both of them and try to make sure you have a well-channel capability. And when you want to sell the product, you always are capable to schedule production as soon as possible to produce the product into the market. What about its benefits and costs? Now let's look at an example of a car. So in the market, our car, what happened is we have a lot of car, and this is a common platform, which is where the car is published. Maybe you can say this is a market. You can say this. You can argue this is a market. It's correct market. And now we have different cars, and this is actually the normal differentiation point. This is a normal differentiation point, which is a point that many companies are launching their cars into the market. For example, there can be compact cars, passenger sedan, can be SUVs. So now we have type ABC cars launched into the market in the normal time. And many of these brands do pretty successful in this normal differentiation time if they can gain a successful and sufficient amount of customers. But for postponement, what the companies who apply postponement basically delay this process. They have a longer common platform, which is a kind of a market preparation period. I would say preparation period, and probably the supply chain. I would say the supply, when you are making this product, when you're manufacturing the product, so on. These are included in the common platform. So what happened for these three companies, they are delaying the differentiation point. So before they are producing at this point, now the differentiation point now here is called the delay differentiation point. We refer as DDP, and normal differentiation point NDP. So now they are launching the product NDP. So what do they do under this long common platform when a normal launching is happening? Basically, they are gathering market information. They are looking at the changes in customers' taste. They're looking at how customers are reacting to existing brands. They're looking at customers' preferences. They might be also examining customers' behaviors. So in this case, they are not using past information to help them with market research, but they are using direct market observation. They are observing, or maybe they are gathering search data, secondary research, primary research, quantitative, qualitative research. In order, you can learn more of this in marketing. They are applying these strategies in order to find out customer taste and what is a brand the customers want to buy. And after that, maybe they spend, I would say maybe the first few time, maybe here about 50% of time they are doing observing and doing analysis. So OA, analysis, research. So OAR, you just memorize this as OAR. So observation, analysis, and research. So during maybe 40 to 50% of the time in their extended common platform, they are doing observation, analysis, and research based on already published cars into the market. And afterward, we have another stream of time, maybe 60% of time. In this period, they are making this product. So while others are selling this product, they observe what customers like, so they hopefully can make a product that they can get higher sales. So this is a period of new product development. So during this period, they are making their product. But this is pretty hard because there are a few disadvantages here I'll discuss a bit later. And after this, they'll reach their delay differentiation point. And after they reach delay differentiation point, now they are beginning their product life cycle. So now they are starting to sell this car from the introduction to growth, then to maturity to decline. So they'll follow the same curve as what other normal business do in this case. So in this case, when we are applying this postponement strategy, they are selling this product later. So and they will break out. They have a longer common platform because they so before they're able to work, and now they're still able to work, which means in this process they are not earning any money. They're only putting cost. Well, here they hopefully can earn a lot of profits after they sell this at the delay differentiation point. So now, hopefully, you guys understand a bit about what is postponement, what is its strategy, and what is its definition. And however, now I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of postponement. Postponement can be a pretty... Okay, guys, sorry for the I live near the Apple. So the postponement can refer to can be pretty risky, and now we want to go through the advantages and disadvantages. So postponement, so if you look at this diagram right here, we can analyze some existing benefits given by postponement. There are quite many data that show postponement actually works. So for example, here our production demand, actual demand is 200. So here our mismatch is 100, mismatch is 200, here our mismatch is 300. These are the mismatch. And here our mismatch is actually, here is 50, here's 50 mismatch, and here's 20, and here's 30. So I don't want to go through in detail. It's pretty straightforward. I think it is pretty straightforward. Here is 20 and here is 30. It's pretty straightforward. So if you see this diagram, actually postponement can help you to reduce the mismatch. I mentioned in the last lecture about supply and demand, because when you are actually reducing the mismatch, there's a higher point you can get more sales in the market. But I mentioned before, postponement is pretty risky, and not many businesses want to implement this strategy, and because of many reasons. First of all, when they implement postponement, they have to be careful of one problem, is whether the popularity will still be there. So for example, the goal is to make the same brand of product, the same model of product, or something like that, the same type of a product, but with customer preferences from their observation analysis process. But how if when they are already, as we know, is we have a differentiation point, right? So when we differentiate and we are producing, launching our car here, do we still have popularity? Do we still have popularity? This is a pretty good question to ask. It is quite a big concern whether we still have popularity right here, right? So we have to be careful on this part, because sometimes some product go pretty fast. The popularity go pretty fast, maybe 2 months, and after your common platform, this is not popular anymore. So you have to ask the question whether it's popular or not, still popular or not popular. Second question is does your profits over can cover the cost? Sorry, I want to word it again. Does postponement actually help for you? Does postponement actually provide more benefits than the normal differentiation point approach? This is a pretty good question, because sometimes for businesses who postpone their production and they're able to get a lot of sales, it is pretty good. But you have to think about profit. You have to is P and cost. You have to think about profit and cost. These two are pretty important concepts in this part. You have to think about both of them, because you are actually implementing more cost and you have more opportunity cost. Because when other brands are selling their cars, you actually still putting money. In this process, you're only putting cost. You're not making any money. So you have to make sure this part can be highly beneficial for you. Otherwise, go back to this, right? So this is basically what I want to say, that you have two things to be careful with. First of all is your cost, and is your popularity, whether the product will still be popular after you are postpone the production and launch your product during the postpone differentiation point, PPP, or postpone the differentiation point, PDP, sorry. And the second question you need to be careful is whether your product will create enough benefits to cover this high cost process, and whether I mentioned before, your OA and analysis and observation and research, whether your OA are applicative, are useful. Sometimes even theoretically, this strategy is meant to use these three processes in order to determine the customer's taste preferences and to find out the demand. But however, sometimes it doesn't work. For example, for many small businesses, even if they observe the market, it may be pretty hard for them to make something customer like. And the next question is customer loyalty and brand reputation. What happened with this? This means for small businesses and those businesses who have a bad customer reputation or still haven't built enough customer reputation yet, they have to be careful on these two concepts. Because otherwise, if they implement this and they launch their product at this delayed differentiation point DDP, maybe no one wants to buy the product. So even if they spend so much cost, they may still not buy this product, even though this product may be very good. It may be highly innovative. It may be really useful. It may be useful, but if the business is not really big, they are not likely to get a lot of sales. And the last question is, how did this company do? If this company did pretty well, it may be a bad problem for you. It may be a problem because customer already bought the product and they're not willing to buy a product again. And this specifically applies to small businesses. If you postpone your production, people all buy from this, like Volkswagen, for example, BMW, and they buy from a Rolls-Royce, maybe a Land Rover. Then after that, when you launch your product, no one wants to buy already. Those potential customers have already found the source of buying. So they already got the product on their hands, and then it may be a big problem, and you've spent a lot of cost in the previous state as well. So this is pretty bad disadvantage. Okay guys, so that's pretty much about postponement. I believe I went through quite detailed, and I hope it's quite clear for you guys. And this is actually our end of lecture 7. So I want to take a full recap on our lecture 7. Take it from the beginning. So first of all, we talked about coordination, internal and external coordination. And then we went through the coordination areas. Please record this part. And then we also talk about coordination failures. Coordination failures, the bullwhip effect. Then we went on to talk about bullwhip effect in more detail. How can we solve this and what to be careful. Then we mentioned about vendor managing inventory. We discussed its strategies, pros and cons, and lastly we went to postponement, which is a possible way to achieve mass customization or to achieve controllability and flexibility in the same time if you're able to do it well. Because then you are not only able to sell your product that customers like, which means you have flexibility, you have high responsiveness, you can also increase your efficiency if you are able to work pretty well, break your time and distribute your time very well, work together, assemble your resources, coordinate well to publish your products during this common platform. So guys, this is pretty much about lecture 7, and I will see you guys in the quiz. In the quiz you have 8 questions and I will post up the answer in the next video after the quiz. So that's pretty much about that. And but other than English version, I'm also coming up with a Chinese version and Spanish version of this course. So if you're interested, please check out my channel. The playlist for the Chinese version will be in Chinese. It is also named Supply Chain Management 101. And for the Spanish, the playlist name is Administración Cadena de Suministro. So if you're interested, please check out our playlist in my YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys in the quiz. And we'll talk about globalization and sustainable supply chain practices in our last lecture, which is a pretty meaningful topic, and we'll discuss it in lecture 8. So I'll see you there.